So, as I was saying, creating battery-friendly background using Work Manager. So, background processing is the execution of tasks in different thread other than the main or UI thread. So, why would we want to execute tasks reasons, but the main reason is to for best user. Basically, the main thread um, controls users' interaction and views, and you don't want to like put too much work that could take time on that, so as not to cause lag and cause the app to hang and all that. So you want to, when you have a task that might take time, and heavy task, you would want to do it on a separate thread just for best effect on your app, like that. Sure. So the background processing. But background tasks, as regarding here stuff, the task application needs to execute when the app is not on the foreground, when the app is not running or is on the background. Why would you want to run tasks when your app is not running? There are some tasks like that. Example, if you have an app that loads stuff from a remote server, you might want to constantly sync your data, or maybe once in a day, just to make sure your user gets fresh content every time they launch your app. So that's an example of a background task that you might want to run when the app is not running itself. So there are a number of solution libraries in Android I can use for that. You have the Alarm Manager plus broadcast receivers, then you have the job scheduler, and you have your Firebase dispatchers. But not using these libraries in a correct way can have negative effects on the user's battery and can make them uninstall your app eventually. So Work Manager to the rescue. So Work Manager is a Jetpack library that helps you control your background work in a way that it automatically takes into consideration your battery and API level. So before that, you might want to, when you want to create a battery-friendly background task, you might want to take into consideration some things like if the task is even necessary in the first place, because the best background task is one that doesn't exist. Then you might want to try and optimize your code such that it doesn't use too much CPU or disk. And also, okay, things to note about Work Manager. So it's compatible with API levels from 14 and above, manages your deferrable and guaranteed background work. Then it's not specifically useful for tasks that should run at a precise time. You can just use your Alarm Manager instead. So most importantly about Work Manager is that you can choose your constraints to run what you want in place to be able to run your background task. So, okay, example of constraints that you can define is you can tell your Work Manager to only run the background work when the phone is charging, or when the phone has internet connection, or when the phone is idle, stuff like that. So just to give the best user experience. So how to use Work Manager? You define the dependency in your build.gradle file. Then you would create a worker class. This is a code snippet. So buttress that. So you create a worker class. In this case, the name of our worker class is the fetch worker. So, and you extend the worker class, the actual worker class. There is a coroutine worker in case you want to run a suspend function. But for this, we are just using the worker class, and you have to override. Okay. So for in your worker, you have to override the do work function, and that is where you put what you actually want to do, the function, the work you want to run. So in this case, you have the fetch all data as the actual work you want to do. So it can return three possible results, which includes success, result of success, and failure and retry. So you might want to check if the result is success, then that's okay. Then if it fails, you might want to retry, or you might just want to end it by just returning result of failure. So in this case, you're just returning failure. Then the next thing you want to do is create your work request. So you can have a one-time work, or you can have a periodic work request. For these snippets, we're using a one-time work request. So you would be able to define your request and set your constraint and use the builder to build your request. So here we are able to define our constraints using the constraints builders. And as you can see, part of the constraint is to set the required network type to connected. We could set it to unmetered or several other options. You could also check if the device is idle and if it requires charging. Then you can build your constraints and pass it into your work request. So the final step will be to hand over the task to your system by doing this line, by enqueuing your requests like this, getting the instance of the work manager and enqueuing the request function you earlier defined. Thank you. Any question or comment?
Is this like a top for Android or iOS or Mac?
Android.
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 There's no Android. There's no Android. I can't see any Android thing. The first thing I see on creating battery for any background class, and I see a laptop.
If you have, okay, well, the one that's off the top of my, it's not one of the actually that they have, maybe I have that is from right site constantly with the ones on your like user using the hub so that by the time the user launches the are seeing fresh directly in sync with what's on the remote server.
Yeah, so your slide when you see the your result of success, when your result of success comes fast, when you come, what's the which result? Does it ship before it's does it ship it's game?
The form this do work return the result, and that's the result. That's the result of success of failure.
Do what is it?
It's the function you're already.
Over, I mean, you don't result as of work manager or you become results.
Work manager. The same work manager that returns the results. All you have to do is put in what you want to do.
I think what we are talking about, I think what we are talking about is not like a wrapper class.
No.
I think your results is wrong.
It's not a wrapper class.
It's not that one. Yes, confusion.
It comes with
The work manager itself.
Um, alright, so you said creating battery friendly patterns. Is that supposed to be a topic or is a topic on work manager?
Yes, there's a topic on work manager. Using work manager.
Using work manager for
Yeah.
background tasks? Because I think there are specific scenarios in which you actually need work manager. And you use work manager basically when you want a particular piece of work to be done, when there are particular things that are in place,
Yeah.
such as the body that in charge and everything like that. So as such, I think creating battery friendly as I think I could easily say setting my location to use using location.pass instead of using location.find. When you're using location service is a very good example of using battery friendly as
Yeah.
same task. I
Yeah.
don't think you explained it. I don't know, like your topic is very big. I don't know if you know.
Okay, so the topic is creating background from battery-friendly background tasks using Work Manager. There's other scenarios that you could use your Work Manager, but if you want to use it for, it's also very applicable to use it for to create battery-friendly background tasks because you can set constraints as regarding battery and all.
I think one thing is saying that you should like the evolution of work of like how we got work manager is quite important to you. Because work manager is pretty
Yeah.
really
Learning
I
manager.
think there are different scenarios where you can for a very good example, I'll tell you that the work manager is basically for most times when the user is not going to be actively using your app. And the user is probably just going to be maybe the phone is charging or something, and the user is not actively using your app. Because if the user is actively using your app and then you want to run the background task or probably get the user probably a piece of data somewhere along the line when the user is using it. I don't think we want to use
Yeah,
work
that's
manager because you are not sure when you are using work manager, you are not sure of when you get the results.
yeah.
It has to be that constraint.
That's one is the constraint.
And sometimes you know
It will not even be. It will not even ask friendship that I'm trying to confuse. Right, so next.
So I think it's like film is too, I don't know, the design is too much for the phone. Then explain how you're using job scheduler or alarm manager to perform a particular task before and use work manager to approach that same project. For example, it's important, like I said, to show progression from what we yeah, since you just jump to work manager, things make us appreciate. So, what about
For me, I like to sing.
like
You had a lot of images that I couldn't quite relate to what was said. So what was like, like I said, using battery friendly background, where to go there. Using what he literally did not have a phone in any of them. This is it for you. Sorry. Then I was about to say something. Yeah, then good luck. I mean, so you told us about how great seeing is beautiful. That's what they say. Okay.
This is not all.
So just saying, it's not that I get a lot of these things were very strange to most of the guys. That's the most of it. So it feels like kind of I'm always fine. It's fine. No problem.
But you know, if you know person know the list, you know the new. We'll start next year.